There's kind of this cultural context that religion is something that's not exactly, great. People talk about it all the time. And I think one of the reasons is that we recognize that religion is some sort of outside structure imposed upon us. Like the lady who said that people will go to churches if they are looking for community and structure and stuff imposed on them. And so sometimes we get that perspective, but spirituality, that's a different ballgame altogether. People love spirituality. They're into spirituality. It's very easy to be a spiritual person, to live in a spiritual community, because spirituality basically just means that you get to explore whatever you want. And you get to try out different spiritual things. In fact, you could go to a spiritual bookstore and purchase spiritual trinkets and spiritual crystals and spiritual card decks and all kinds of things to explore that side of spirituality. Or you could sit down on the ground in sort of a cross-legged position and just quiet your mind and explore spirituality that way. It's amazing, though, because what I have found to be true is that spirituality and religion are really two ways of describing the same thing, and it is a very selfish thing. It's really all about us. Let me give you an example. Let's take an extreme example. I'm kind of familiar with the religious thought of Buddhism. I majored in philosophy in college, and so we studied ancient religions and Eastern faiths and other philosophies and stuff like that. And so I want to tell you just a little bit about what Buddhism is all about. Buddhism, as a philosophy, says that you don't exist. Neither does that chair, neither does the world around you. Everything really is just one thing. That one thing is just that thing. It is, you might call it God, you might call it something. I think Buddhists would probably refer to it as just being, or the oneness, or the it, or something like that. It is one thing, and your self-identity is just an illusion. And so what you need to do in the Buddhist thinking is that you need to learn the teaching that your body and your mind are just an illusion. And you need to do the ritual of spending time in deep meditation so that you can get beyond yourself and attain the enlightenment of oneness with the rest of the universe. And recognize that you are no longer you are part of the one. Does that make sense? That's Buddhist thinking, that's Buddhist thought. Basically in a very, very small nutshell. And you think, well, that's the least selfish of all kinds of religious thought, because it says I'm nothing and I need to lose myself somehow. However, if you pay attention to what I just said, Buddhism requires you to learn something and to do something so that you can gain enlightenment. It's really just religion. It's focusing on a ritual and a doctrine so that you can achieve some type of gain that benefits you. Religion is all about us. It's all about finding those things that we do and that we know that give us some type of satisfaction or some type of assurance that life after this life is going to be okay, or that life in this life is going to be okay, or that we are somehow playing the right game with regard to the universe around us. It's all about us. I'm trying to find my place in this world. It's selfish. Well, I want to encourage you today that it's time for us to shake off the selfish notions of spirituality and religion. And there's an easy way and there's a hard way to do it. The hard way is the way called tragedy. If you could picture in your mind a woman walking in a forest, and as she's walking along in the forest, not knowing what it looks like, she steps into some quicksand. And there she is, sinking into the quicksand. And she's never heard any lessons on how to get out of quicksand. There are no ropes or tree branches or vines anywhere near her. She can't figure it out. All she knows to do is to try to get out of it as fast as she can. And as she's wiggling, she's getting deeper and deeper into it. You know, earlier in the day, she was having a nice walk. She was enjoying the trees. She was seeing the birds. And she was just enjoying being in nature. It was a day that was just filling her up with everything that she had ever wanted. And now all of a sudden, she's in quicksand, sinking, and she cannot get herself out. And instantaneously, the situation is no longer about her. It's about the sand. Or take, for example, another extreme case. A man is swimming in the ocean and a shark comes up to him and grabs onto him and doesn't quite bite through him, but has got him latched into his jaws right here on the side. At that moment, the situation ceases to be about that man, and it is all about the shark. See, when we face a time of tragedy, we recognize that in that place of helplessness and hopelessness and confusion, in that place of tragedy, we recognize we are out of our league. We are out of our depth. We are out of control. It is no longer about us. We have lost it completely. And that's when people will cry out, God, help me. The hard way. Wait until you face a moment in your life where all control is ripped from you and it's obvious that the situation is not about you. And then you're faced with the decision, am I now going to give it all to God or not? There's an easier way. I'm glad you are still paying attention, because the easier way is what we've been calling the last couple of weeks, losing my religion. This is not to say that I want you all to give up going to church. I think it's fun coming to church. I like this church and I like you, so I'm glad that you're here. I think it's really cool if you come back next week. Next week we're going to learn a lesson about something that makes Jesus want to puke. And it's the only time in the Bible you'll ever see Jesus say he wants to puke about something. I actually wonder if the guy ever got the flu, because, I'd be curious about that. He was the Son of God after all. What would that have looked like? But so Jesus says that he will throw up if something next week happens. I think you've got to come back to find out what next week is going to make Jesus that sick. So I'm encouraging you to come to church. That's not what this series is about. I'm not telling you don't ever go to church. I'm not saying religion, just give up on everything spiritual, give up on everything religion. Let's get back to the definition so I don't get myself in trouble. On your note sheet, point number 1 under review, I've given you the definition of what religion is versus what Christianity is. Religion relies on rituals and doctrines, but Christianity is the reality of a creator building relationship with his creation. Religion is about us. I learn the right things, I do the right things so that I can gain the right things. Christianity and the whole notion of who God is all about something different. It's all about God saying to us, he wants to know us. It's all coming from his angle. You can review those points some other time, but I will recognize that we are on our next to the last point. Next week is going to be the last major point about religion versus Christianity we're going to make. And so the series is coming to an end. But today we come to a point that I believe is just about the most important one. And it goes like this. Religion is all about us, but following Jesus is all about him. I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but it is too easy for us to just slip on past this. It's one of the reasons why in our church we try to